Hello, everyone. My name is Joan Dixon, and I am the Director of Student Programs at Gulf Coast South Area Health Education Center. What you can see on our screen right now is all of the REACH student programs that we offer. They can begin your pathway to a health career with a health career presentation, which is available on our website, or career chat recordings, which is what we're bringing to you here tonight. There are many video recordings of career chats on our website. We also do health career camps, usually in the summertime. I work with future health professionals as a partner with their HOSA program, the Health Occupation Students of America. We also offer REACH intern programs for college students and high school students who are more interested in learning about public health programming. And our crowning glory is our AHEC Scholars Program for upper level undergraduate college students and graduate level college students, a 2-year intensive program for public health. We have all these programs that are absolutely free of charge for students in our 4-county service area of Charlotte, DeSoto, Sarasota, and Manatee counties. You can see our website on the bottom of the screen, my phone number on the bottom of the screen, and my email address on the bottom of the screen. So please feel free to contact me anytime. Without further ado, let's get you to the career chats. This evening, we have a special treat for you. We have Dr. Nadal, pediatrician. But first, you may not be so sure exactly what a pediatrician does, or you may think you know what a pediatrician does. I'm going to bring up a quick video as an introduction to pediatrics. So hold on just one second. And Courtney, I'm going to look for you for a thumbs up to make sure that everybody can hear it.
To improve the quality of life of a child is immensely rewarding. Pediatricians combine science, technology, compassion, and people skills in a unique profession, tasked with providing medical care for infants, children, and young adults. Pediatricians are physicians who diagnose, treat, and help prevent children's diseases and injuries from birth through young adulthood. At clinics, they regularly see patients for well-child visits, where they check to see if kids are growing and developing appropriately, as well as ensuring children receive necessary vaccines and health tests, such as hearing and vision screening. Pediatricians also see children when they are sick and prescribe medications or other treatment. These physicians work with the whole family to design treatment plans and provide the knowledge and support that is needed to care for a child. While most pediatricians work in doctors' offices, others care for patients in hospitals. Pediatricians may specialize in different areas such as neonatology or autoimmune disorders. After college, pediatricians complete 4 years of medical school, followed by 3 years of residency training in general pediatrics. Pediatricians may seek additional training in a specialty field.
All right, thank you, Joan. My name is Courtney Sapko. I am an intern with Joan through the REACH program, and I am currently a student at the University of Florida. I'm very excited to announce today we have Dr. Florencio Nadel, MD. He is a pediatrician in the Hillsborough County area, so just a little bit away from where Joan does her AHEC work. And he actually works in his own pediatrics clinic. So Dr. Nadel, if you'd like to introduce yourself, say a little bit about what the day in the life is for you as a pediatrician.
Well, hello, I'm Nadel, and I've been a pediatrician since 1978. We work from 8 to 5 usually. I now work 4 days a week as I'm semi-retired, but usually used to work 5 days a week, many hours at night and after hours to see patients, hospitals, and so forth. It is a very rewarding career that I always said I would do for free because I love taking care of children. So that's a little bit about pediatrics. You have some questions to ask me, so go ahead and fire away.
All right, so what would you say is your job description?
Well, it's to make sure I take care of the health from birth all the way to around normally now seeing 18 to 26. It used to be only 18 years old, but as children get older, they feel a little more comfortable through college with us. So we do see them 26, yes. We give vaccinations and regular checkups all the way from many at the first year of life and after 2 years old once a year.
So where do you work if you'll describe kind of the atmosphere?
Well, I have two offices in Brandon. I also have working with me 2 other doctors and 3 nurse practitioners. So we are a small group that sees at least around, I would say 30 patients per patient a day, and we're about 6. So that's quite a few patients that we see every day. And we're open at 8 in the morning, and we are still working at 7:30 at night, 4 days a week. On Friday, we close at 5. We do open Saturdays once every Saturday from 8, I think 9 o'clock to 12. We also do that. We don't open Sundays. Okay.
But you are open 6 days out of the week. Wow,
6
that's
days out of the week, yeah.
absolutely. So I know you mentioned nurse practitioners and nurses. Are there any types of other health professionals that you work with?
Well, we do have both PAs, which are a little bit different than nurse practitioners. They go 4 years of college and 2 years of training. We have nurse practitioners that finish their college and then become a nurse, and then they do a 2-year program for a nurse practitioner to become a nurse practitioner. They function very much like pediatricians, and they see the majority of all our patients. Sometimes they highly complicated are best seen by doctors. We do have 3 doctors in our practice. Okay, they're great.
So I know you've already kind of mentioned the types of patients that you work with. I guess more specifically, I noticed in the video, it says it's more you work with the whole family. So if you could kind of describe that dynamic.
Well, that's a big dynamic because every time I see a patient, it depends on their age. And the parents are either the parents and sometimes grandparents, and believe it or not, we are seeing kids that are being taken care of by the state. That first reason A, B, or C, they no longer have parents to take care of them, and we see them, and we see all that whole spectrum. Obviously, the best situation is to have both parents present. That happens rarely now. We see more single parents and grandparents sometimes, but it is always important to communicate with the people that bring the child what's happening, but always understanding that the patient that you're seeing is that baby or that young child, and be what to do to their parents or grandparents or healthcare provider there with you. You understand?
Absolutely. So I know you kind of already described what a typical day is like, but I'd like to hear, maybe towards the beginning of your career, what was that typical day more like? Because I know you're heading towards retirement now.
Well, really, I do about the same as I do, just a little bit less. But essentially, the beginning, let's say after you finish training, 3 years, like it said in that intro, the hours there are a lot more than 8 hours a day. You're really on call every 3 nights or 2 nights, and you work sometimes not 8 hours or 12 hours or more. But that 3 year period passes. When you open your practice, you usually have to, on a single practice, when I started, I didn't have any other people. I had to get up in the morning at 6, go make in a hospital in Brandon, work from 8 in the morning till 5, then get in my car and drive all the way to Tampa to see patients in Tampa General, St. Joe, Hospital and Women's Hospital, and then head back home. So the day beginning of my practice was almost from 6 in the morning till 9 at night, every day. Plus, yes, I would take a half a day on Wednesday that we would do, but half a day on Saturday. And so you still have to make rounds. You still have to go to all those 4 hospitals in the morning, make rounds, and then come back. So even on a Sunday, you were working till about 12. That's why most doctors now work in groups and work with other people, because single practice it's almost overbearing for a doctor to do so. So we kind of delegate little parts of that to different doctors. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can imagine with working that many hours, and if you didn't have other doctors to kind of share that, making the rounds with, how did that impact your personal life, especially when, you were first starting?
It was very tough because it requires you to be working almost every day, a good 12 hours, not 12, it's sometimes 18 hours a day. Plus you were on call at night, any times they would call you. Right now we have, very lucky that we have after hours, ER, many places where your patients can go to. And those days when I first started, they call you for every little fever, every little cold. And you had to, every time they call you, be nice to people. You couldn't, hey, when you wake me up 3 in the morning, you could read the little Tylenol bottle and know the dose. You can't do that. You have to understand that these are parents that have a child and they're afraid. They just need somebody to tell them when to go to the ER, when to go. And that's important to do that. Keep that in mind. And it takes a special type of personality to be able to understand that and not bark at people. But that's what you do as a pediatrician. It's a caring profession. But very important, and it is not as bad. For people that are going to start now, it's not going to be this bad, guys. It's going to be better. Okay.
All right. And
we now, yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to tell you that we now have in our training program a certain amount of hours that by law they can work. And a new intern, a new doctor can now work beyond that standard 60-hour. So they stop. So it's not like in my days where you had to work until your eyes fell out.
well, I'm glad that they've come up with some better solutions and some limitations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what type of starting salary can somebody expect in this career?
When we hire a first year nurse practitioner, they usually are between 90 and 100,000 a year. A pediatrician between 110 and 125. So that's starting salary. As the years go by, we usually have a system that's called productivity, that they can increase their salary depending on how many people they see. Every year that as they get to at least the first 3 years in our practice, the base goes up a small percentage. Maybe not a small, it's almost $10,000. That's small, but it goes up, as they get more. But after 3 years, it's almost all the base plus a productivity phase. At least that's how we run it in my office. Yes.
All right. And what
Very
made
good salary? Yeah.
Absolutely. But it comes after a lot of work. So what made you decide to pursue pediatrics specifically?
I come from a family of physicians. My grandfather, my dad, and me are all doctors. Actually, my great-grandfather was a doctor too. So I'm kind of fourth in line. And my dad was a family practitioner. My grandfather was an OBGYN. But my dad said, man, you got to be in surgery. Surgery is what the money's at. So I finished medical school and I wanted to be a surgeon. I hated it. I didn't like surgery at all. So I did what they used to call a rotating internship. And in that rotating internship, I loved pediatrics. And that's how I ended up finding my way to work taking care of children. So I did not start to be a pediatrician, no.
Absolutely. So that kind of leads into my next question is, you know, did you face any other challenges on the path to your career? Obviously, you went in thinking surgery and that didn't quite go as planned. Were there any other obstacles that you faced?
Yeah, obviously, as you start in college, the obstacles are immense. To get into medical school, it's just as hard now and probably worse during the time where I was going to medical school. During the time I was going to medical school, and you got to remember this years ago, and it was in the 70s. You don't want to hear that, but I graduated as a doctor in 1975. So in the 70s, there was something going on here in the States called the Vietnam War. And during the Vietnam War, it was there was something called the draft, where every person got drafted to go into the military. And one of the ways to not get drafted is to go to a graduate school. So the medical schools were full of people with good grades. I had good grades, but I couldn't compete with a 4.0 all the way through. So it was difficult to get into medical school at that time. So I went and I ended up going to medical school in Mexico. So I went to medical school in Mexico for 4 years. Then I had to transfer all my credentials here. But when I finally finished, I was accepted by the University of Florida, and I did my pediatric training in Gainesville. So I'm a Gator also.
Awesome. So how did you handle, going to Mexico after going to school here?
Well, to me, it wasn't culture shock because I'm bilingual. I'm originally from Cuba. So language I already had, I didn't. But I did go with many, I think in the Tampa area, I have 5 guys that went to medical school with me, still practicing in this area. And a lot of them were not Spanish speaking, and they had to learn Spanish. And English was English, and you study the same books as the medical students in the U.S., and you have to pass the same hard tests as they do. So when I went to medical school in Mexico, I knew I had to study to get in to the United States. So you had to pass all those tests. And, I did quite well through them, so I had no problem, But it's a hard test, not easy. Those tests are not easy.
Absolutely. So does someone in your profession experience traumatic events?
Traumatic events because of the practice or, unfortunately in medicine, you do see death and you see life. And I've always said that in my profession, you see miracles and you see disasters. And sometimes you see kids that should not have a chance to make it. And you unfortunately see children that pass away. I just had a 17-year-old in a car accident, patient of mine pass away. Even that hurts you when that happens. And just happened yesterday, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be very difficult, especially working with, the younger population. Most of the time, they are being taken way too soon, and it can be very traumatic, I can imagine. How does your profession impact people's lives, though? Like you were saying, in the instances where people like children, they recover and they weren't given a good prognosis.
Well, I've been doing this a long time. So I've had cancer patients that were not supposed to make it. And it's very rewarding. Sometimes for me, I meet a lady that I can't quite recognize in Walmart. So I just want to thank you. You were the one that picked up the cancer in my son, and we got him. Took care of them. But that happened 20 years ago, and right now they don't look the same. So it's very rewarding. So I've had lots of episodes like that. Like I said, fortunately, we do see, but thank you. And thanks pediatrics, we don't see that much death. Most do quite well. But, you practice long enough like I have, there are children that you fight for and you lose them. It happens in medicine. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what would you say is the least satisfying thing about your career or part of your career?
Lisa, I love what I do. There's very little that I hate about pediatrics. I hate the paperwork. I agree with that. I had to learn to use a computer after doing 30 years of writing my pediatric notes. I know. I actually saw Dr. Last week, an ophthalmologist in town, who's still writing everything because he doesn't want an incision from doing. He's an excellent surgeon, by the way. He's going to do my cataract, but he still has not transitioned to the computer system. That was a big headache. I hated that, but now I can look back almost 8 years later and say, I don't know how I did the writing because this is a lot easier. So, life is learning. You never stop learning. And in medicine, if you think you went to school for 10 years or whatever, and then you stop, that's not so. Medicine, you study every day. It's the way it goes.
Absolutely. And so on a more positive note, I know the paperwork kind of wasn't your favorite part, but what is the most satisfying part about your career?
I think it's following children, seeing them as babies, seeing them grow, making sure they do well. It's very rewarding. I take care of a big group of children with attention deficit. It is a major problem in the single parent family, in the lower socioeconomic classes. Medicaid, and we take poor people, and they are unfortunately being hit by the situations of their life because they didn't pick whose parents they were going to get. And some of them have attention deficits. Some come from parents that had alcohol and drugs and problems. And it is so rewarding to see those kids doing better, managing correctly, not over treating him, and they're doing. To me, that's great when I see him, go through and make it.
Absolutely. So what is something you wish everyone knew about your profession?
I think that sometimes people don't really understand what a pediatrician does. In today's easy access medicine, the biggest problems that I have is that when parents can have the option of being seen immediately by a doctor in a walk-in clinic or a hospital. We have 3 ERs in Brandon, 3. We got more ERs than McDonald's. We have probably 5 walking clinics, pediatric walking clinics in Brandon, and they take all the insurances, so it's so convenient, but they do not necessarily, they're great. They're great when your kid has 103 seizures, fever, bleeding, stitches, but people use them for everything. And that is the part of medicine now that I wish that we would have thought differently on how we do it. But convenience, to get a hold of me, you have to make an appointment and be there on time. And I am hard to get a hold of, but convenience always beats you.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to medical care, convenience isn't always what we want to put at the top, but unfortunately, it seems like our society is kind of going with, that immediate gratification, whatever they can get into right away.
Exactly, and that's so wrong. In medicine, it's very wrong. It's like buying groceries in 7-Eleven. They're fast, they're there, but they're more expensive, and they don't have everything. Well, the same happens with ER. Yes.
All right. Well, how has your profession changed in the response to the pandemic?
That's a big thing for me, because I went from practicing over 40 years without wearing a mask in my office, being able to hug my kids, love them, tickle them, play with them, to now I'm this foreign person with this mask. I can't touch them. Kids can't read your facial expressions. the whole communication the first 2 or 3 years with a child is how they read your face. That's gone nowadays. The other thing is that I was taught to take a good history, have a nurse or you take good vital signs, examine your patient, and then order tests if necessary. Now you come with a fever and a cough in my office, and I will do a COVID test. I had 3 today, by the way. COVID test. We do strep, we do flu A and B, and we do RSV. And before we see you, we got all these tests. And maybe the kid only has an ear infection. That's just wrong. It's a waste of resources. But this is the way that we're doing medicine now. I don't like it. I think that, yes, we didn't know the pandemic was coming. It's been a horrendous thing for us to lose 500,000 Americans. And I think that was very real. I do believe that masks did help, and all these washing the hands and distancing and all were important. They had to be done. I understand that. But there's negative connotation to that. Education for 2 years, children have not learned in school. Virtual things that we're doing right now are not conducive for children to learn. They don't do well. My ADD students, they're worse than that. I mean, if you would ask kids, they would be talking like us and their hands would be down here with their phone playing games, looking at the kids are amazing. They know how to cheat. So I think that we need to change. And the other part of that is that this was a pandemic of all people. Children never got hurt. The only hurt that we have here is the lack of socialization that children lost, that we did to our old people, which I'm old too, so we know what I mean. But, you know, the way I think, and I tell my doctors is when you're in medicine, you're a soldier in a war. You're a war against bacteria and viruses. If all you hide under the table and don't touch your patient, you're a useless soldier. You have to touch and feel kids to learn how to take care of them. So I don't like pandemic. The short subject with me and all the doctors that I've had doctors that we fired because they don't want to touch kids because they were afraid. True story. That's happened to me.
Yeah, that can be extremely difficult, especially trying to transition, you know, hopefully post-pandemic soon.
He was scared. That happens. I understand that.
Absolutely. But you touched a little bit on technology. How has, you know, the technology, your services, how did those change, especially in the beginning of the pandemic?
Well, technology, you know, that's a question in the last 2 years. Nothing has changed in the last 2 years. There's nothing different. There's nothing new. There's nothing. Yes, we now can test for COVID. We can do a fast test. We can send a PCR. There's nothing new. But pediatrics changed in over 44 years. When I first started practicing, we had no vaccines for meningitis, no vaccines for measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, diphtheria. I was admitting meningitis left and right. We have done tremendous amount of good stuff in pediatrics with vaccinations, but people still are very afraid of vaccinations. And it's hard to understand that for somebody like me who has seen the picture change from 1978, where people could get meningitis at a blink and we had to admit you to intensive care, to a complete change because of vaccination. So we fight vaccination all day long with, because they still somehow, and I really do not understand that don't understand the benefits of vaccines. We used to have iron lungs for people with polio, and there's just so much. People don't remember history, and they don't believe. People believe Mr. Google, but they don't believe you. Yeah, that's a disaster.
All right. Well, kind of taking a jump backwards, thinking back to high school, what classes do you feel that you took that really helped with your career?
You know, without knowing, I guess, I love science. I was one of these lucky guys that was gifted, so I had to bet on that because I was in a small Catholic school, but being gifted in science, it was nuns for me. The nun wanted me to be separate than the rest of the students, and I was, but I hated it because I had special classes with the nun that I wanted to be with the rest of the guys because, you know, I was a 15, 16-year-old guy. Looking back, that was great because she opened a lot of doors in my mind that she couldn't do that for the rest of the students. So, but did I think at 15 I wanted to be a doctor? My dad was telling me to be a doctor every day, and that was the last thing I wanted to do. You know, I loved it. Yeah.
Now, I know you said you kind of wanted to hang out more with the guys during those high school years, but what kind of student were you since you kind of did get pulled away more into academics?
I was a straight A student. I always had good grades. I had no problem. I always got on and all that. I had no problem on being a rebel until I got to college. When I got to college, I actually got to South Florida on a scholarship and flunked out with a 1.7 my second semester. But no, all I did, I ate the midnight beer, chase cars, and I have friends in the family that don't know what we're doing. Anyhow, and that's all I did through that year of college, and I flunked out. But after being out 6 months, I realized that I had to get back to study, and I got back on the right path. So yes, even people that are smart and all that have fallbacks, and you just pick yourself up and get back on track. Okay.
Absolutely. So you kind of already got to my next question, which was how was college and that environment? So you said you went to South Florida. Things didn't necessarily go your way, but you were still able, you know, to go back to school and things. How was that?
I had to go back to Hillsborough Community College and do my 2 years in Hillsborough Community College because of me around for a couple of semesters. So you got to pay back. And that's one of the reasons. Remember, I told you it was hard for me to get into medical because those 2 years brought back some C's that carries you that just, I ended up with a B. I mean, I guess it was B plus college. So it wasn't enough to get into medical school.
Mm.
But sometimes we have to fall to be able to get up and keep walking. And I did that.
Absolutely. So what education and or training was needed for your career? I know you kind of already touched on the 4 years of undergrad and medical school, but I guess going more into maybe your residency and things like that.
You got to do 4 years after you get into medical school. After those 4 years of college, you have to do 4 years. Well, in my case, it was 5 because Mexico would force you to do an extra year to pay the Mexican government for the opportunity to study medicine in Mexico. So I did 4 years of medical school, and I had to go back to Mexico it's a program was called social service, in which you serve the country for whatever you did. And they sent me to a small town, little ERs. I actually got lucky though and was able to work at the university where I teached, you know, medical students, and I did about 6 months of medical student teaching in Mexico. So that helped me through. And then I had to start my residency, and I did it in University of Florida. Yeah.
All right. And do you have to complete continuing education classes every year or recertify or renew your license? Could you kind of go through that process?
Yeah, I am board certified in pediatrics, and you require in my case, about 40 hours of continuing medical education a year. We can do it with programs that we do in the computer. Sometimes we do it by going to there are programs that are set up. I've gone all the way to Hawaii one. I've been to Mexico one. So you can travel cruise ships. Sometimes we'll have a program and we'll go on that, and you get your extra hours, and you work in the morning. I've gone skiing, and you go skiing in the afternoon and you do the work in the morning. So it isn't all work. Sometimes you get a little play in between there, but you have to continue. But the amount of education that you do in continuing medical education is very small. You really stay current in what's happening in your field. Very small part. You still need to read and know what's coming. Things change in medicine all the time.
And how did you pay for your education?
I was very, very lucky because my dad was a doctor. So once I got into medical school, he says, I'll take care of you. And he did. Many of my friends had to borrow $300,000 to $400,000 to get out of medical school. I had to thank my family, and my dad was able to do so. I'm extremely lucky that I had that happen to me. I have lots of friends that were working 10 years to pay off for the money that they put in to go to medical school. But if you get into medical school and pass and you're in there, you immediately you qualify for many loans. So most people in medical school nowadays, once you get in, you immediately qualify for loans that pays your stay, your books, and little spending money. All that goes to you. But the government helps you on that at 3% or less, and you pay at the other end. So I know quite a few doctors have done that, but I got
Right, but they were, fortunately with the starting salaries and everything, they are able to pay those loans off.
Yeah, they can. And their fields makes a lot more money than peds. You understand that?
Oh, absolutely.
Family practice and general and pediatrics are the low part of medicine.
All right. And then as a final best piece of advice for students interested in pediatrics, what could you give them as some wisdom from all your years?
If you like science, if you like medicine, if you like taking care of people, your medicine is not only a profession. I think it's a vocation. If your vocation is to help people, this is the best profession there is. But the vocation is what you do for life. I retired a long time ago. I haven't, because I love what I do. Why would I want to retire when this is what my life is best done for? So that's how you should approach medicine. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nadel, for your time and for answering all of the questions. I think this will really help all the students looking for a future in medicine in general, but especially pediatrics.
All right. Thank
Dr.
you.
Nadel, I wanted to thank you as well, because all of these career chat videos, what I really appreciate the most is guest speakers like yourself telling it like it is. The good, the bad, and the ugly of their careers, because it's important before kids get in there and spend time and money doing something that may not be what they envisioned or may not be what they've seen on television shows, that it's very real.
It isn't anything like TV shows, not at all. But what I got to tell people is, if you fall down, but this is what you want to do, you get up and go, because that's what you do in life. Never back up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We sure do appreciate your time and expertise this evening.
Thank you.